Katrina coverage continues here on the Weather Channel, Hurricane Central.
These are live pictures from Covington, Louisiana, folks. The wind has shifted, and that wind is now more of a northwesterly wind. I'm sorry about that angle of that camera. I'm not sure if the camera tipped over or not. But, Kelly, this is a terrible situation. It was blown over. This is up there on I-12, just a few miles north of the north end of Lake Pontchartrain.
Very poor visibility, very strong, dangerous winds out there. We are in storm alert here at the Weather Channel. Not only are we dealing with Hurricane Katrina itself, the actual eye wall, but also the threat of tornadoes.
That's right. And in Covington itself, that would be St. Tammany Parish. We now have a tornado warning. There are tornado warnings out there, primarily north and east of downtown New Orleans.
That's right. We're going to read off some of the parishes in Louisiana. Washington Parish, St. Tammany Parish, which is where Covington is. Walthall County in southern Mississippi, Pearl River County, also Hancock and Harrison counties, all in Mississippi under tornado warnings.
And Kelly, also till the top of the hour, tornado warnings in George County, Stone County, Perry and Greene County. These are all, again, in southeastern Mississippi, and these storms are racing northbound. Those tornado warnings till noontime. And want to mention also in Coffee County, southeast Alabama by Enterprise and Elba, tornado warning till 12:15 Eastern Daylight Time, 11:15 Central Daylight Time.
Well, before that camera tipped over in Covington, Louisiana, Jeff Morrow recently filed this report.
It's about 25 minutes after 9 a.m. local time here. Again, we tried to give you a little bit different perspective of the winds with Katrina. Whoa, coming out of the north here, very strong. Again, it's probably very hard to see me as I'm walking here. The wind's coming across the parking lot, almost with hurricane force gusts. Right now, probably sustained in the neighborhood of about 45 or 50. But again, it's hard to walk when it's in this kind of a situation. We think that Katrina will continue to pound this area with these northerly strong winds for quite some time, maybe another half hour to hopefully only hour at most. Some of these trees in this area are going to have a hard time standing up. Whoa, that was pretty strong. I think that's the last time I'm going to do that walk because it's starting to get a little bit dangerous. Jeff Morrow reporting on the western side of Hurricane Katrina in Covington, Louisiana.
Wow, that's amazing.
Kelly, I tell you what, that is truly amazing. That's out there in Covington, Louisiana. Now you want to see something pretty amazing. We're going to take you 180 miles east of where Landfall is. This is in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Stephanie Abrams joining us here. Stephanie, I see the winds gusting upwards of 60 miles an hour, not far away at Mary Esther Field. How bad is it out there on the waterfront?
Well, we have seen our winds gusting in Destin, which is just a few miles to our east, to the mid-40s. That's tropical storm force winds, sustained right around 30 miles an hour. So tropical storm force winds, remember everyone, 39 to 73, higher than that is a hurricane. So we are seeing the gust of tropical storm force winds. Now, we haven't seen a whole lot of rain, I must admit. We've seen little spritzes here and there, but we have had that wind. And the only problem with the wind, well, there's a couple problems, but the sand, that's blowing up here. So I have to keep my hood up so my hat doesn't fly off and also so I don't get pounded by that sand. And here's a look at the ocean. This is the other problem with the wind. And as a matter of fact, we're on this sand dune here, and I'm guesstimating they're about 15 feet high. And the water, as I move up to the top, is coming right up to this sand dune. And they actually built these after Ivan because what happened is all of the gulf and the sand was into the bottom floor of this building, and they actually had to crouch down like this because there's so much sand piled up on the first floor of this building. But the water's coming right up to this dune, and it's doing a great job here because down the way it's very hard to see because a lot of people do have dunes up, but the water is actually rushing over their seawalls and going right onto the road, and that's causing the road closures on 98. Now, we have had a police escort, thanks to my producer who was out there, Howard Sappington, and we had Richard, our photographer. They went east of here to Navarre Beach, and the police took them there because they have everything closed down, and they went over the bridge to Navarre Beach, and that is actually where Dennis made landfall. And now they are, of course, seeing about the same thing that we're saying here with the winds and the waves. And this is what we'll be dealing with as we head through the night and into the day tomorrow, and then things will eventually calm down. It doesn't look like a big rainmaker here, but what they're really worried about is just the winds and the waves. But, hey, relative to the folks west of us, we are looking pretty good here, guys, and we'll continue to monitor the situation for you.
We were just noticing, Steph, you're a good 180 miles away from Katrina, and yet you're still experiencing that kind of weather.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, Steph, thank you very much for that report. Again, in the Fort Walton Beach area, Florida, all that replenishment seemingly for naught there, Kelly. They just keep pumping millions of dollars into that.
It's a shame. I tell you what, we've got another update for you on Katrina and what it's up to right now. And of course, the hunters are still going into the storm. They're still flying through it to determine the wind speeds, and we still have them clocked at 125, and it's still moving due north at 16 miles an hour. It's been picking up forward motion speed.
Kelly, it's pretty imposing to see the red area expanding there as the landfall occurs. That tells us cloud tops are cooling. That tells us cloud tops are building. And that tells us that eye wall is very much intact.
Check out 65 miles south of Dauphin Island, where we did have a report of very high waves out there. In fact, up to, I think, 48-foot wave at that buoy. And as you can see, the winds are still coming out of the south-southeast at over 60 miles an hour.
And once again, the nasty spiral bands are moving up in the general direction of Montgomery, moving along I-65.
We'll show you the pictures from Covington coming up next.
Sometimes you just can't get away from high cholesterol. When diet and exercise aren't enough, adding Lipitor can lower your bad cholesterol from 39 to 60%. And if you have several common risk factors, Lipitor can reduce your chance of a heart attack by 36%. Lipitor is one of many cholesterol-lowering treatment options in addition to diet and exercise that you and your doctor can consider. Lipitor is not for everyone, including people with liver problems and women who are nursing, pregnant, or who may become pregnant. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. Tell your doctor about other medications you are taking or if you experience muscle pain or weakness, as these may be signs of a rare but serious side effect. Ask your doctor about Lipitor today.
This is not the time to plan. Plan for weather emergencies before they happen. Be on the safe side. Plan, prepare, protect. Visit weather.com/safeside. A message from the Weather Channel and Duracell.
Nobody knows this neighborhood better than Wendy Owens of Prudential Real Estate. Wendy's great with technology, and she's the best there is at bringing buyers and sellers together.
I'd agree to an early closing.
Professionals like Wendy Owens are why you choose Prudential Real Estate.
Buying or selling a home? Call your local Prudential Real Estate office today.
Get more out of your Dell PC with home installation, training, and virus assistance for your new PC for an additional charge. This Dimension desktop is $299 after mail-in rebate. Plus, get a free printer. Get more out of now. Dell PCs use Intel Celeron processors.
Hurricane Katrina makes landfall. Stay with us for the latest in-depth analysis, live reports from the field, weather experts, meteorologists, and hurricane hunters telling you what's happening, why it's happening, and what's next. The Weather Channel, Hurricane Central. The Weather Channel, Hurricane Central. Coming up, the latest on Katrina. But now, you're local on the 8s.
These are live pictures from Covington, Louisiana, north of Lake Pontchartrain, north of downtown New Orleans, by about 25 or 30 miles up there along Interstate 12. That is an area that had the west eye wall. Now the wind is starting to shift, but still, Kelly, it's just amazingly low visibility, and I'm certain those winds are still above hurricane force.
And you mentioned New Orleans, of course, another city very hard hit by the storm, and we want to join now. We want to bring in the mayor of New Orleans, Ray Nagin, and thank you very much for joining us, sir. We want to ask you, how is the city doing in general? What kinds of reports are you receiving about damage?
Well, we're getting reports from all over the city. It's very difficult at this time because the winds are so high. The eye of the storm is passing us as we speak, and winds are, peaking at 150 miles an hour. But the reports we're getting is that we're having some issues with our levee systems. Certain sections of the city, we're getting reports that they're breached. We haven't been able to verify that. We do know that they're being topped, and that water is coming over the top. In certain sections of our city, in the lower Ninth Ward and in New Orleans East, we have gotten lots of calls. We probably have 150 people that are on roofs, hanging on for dear life, and trying to wait this out. And we're getting about 5 calls per minute as far as more people calling in saying that they have problems. Another issue we're having is we have such beautiful old historic buildings that we're starting to get reports of buildings collapse. To date, we have about 20 buildings that have collapsed, and we cannot verify whether people were in those buildings or not. We've had several fires in the area and just lots of damage. I'm in a downtown hotel right now, and that's probably 100 windows that have been blown out, and it looks like, who knows what. But we're still riding out the storm, and we're at the opposite point right now.
Mayor Nagin, I understand there are about 10,000 people in the Superdome, and you've had some damage there. What's the latest in the building?
Well, the building is structurally sound as we understand it, but it does have a roof that is of a rubbery substance. And it's my understanding that half of that substance has blown off, and some tiles are missing. So there is some leakage in the Superdome. There's a hole in the roof, as I understand it. But the structure is still sound.
Mayor?
Yes.
How did you ride out the storm? Where did you spend the night?
Well, I started out in City Hall, but the building started swaying a little too much. So I went next door to one of the mega hotels that are in the city, and we rode it out here. We started out on the 27th floor, and then when the winds got really high, we came down to the 3rd and the 4th floors, and that's where I am right now.
And Mayor Nagin in New Orleans, we thank you very much for your time, and again, we pray for the safety of the residents of the city of New Orleans.
Thank you very much for that update, and we also have another update elsewhere in Alabama now. We have reporter Tony Thomas of WAGA. He gives us a closer look at Mother Nature's fury there.
My worst fear is this hurricane's hit in the daytime. I think you'll see people on four-wheelers, you'll see people out in trucks, wanting to get out and just do wheelies and things and just, have a hurricane party.
So far, Commissioner Mike Dean's worst fears have not been realized, but the day is still early. Roads here are mostly empty. Homes in low-lying areas already flooding.
It's mid-morning and we're starting to feel the first powerful blast from Katrina here in Mobile. We are on the north side of the city and we're seeing gusts right now of 45, 50, 55 miles an hour. But we're told to expect gusts of more than 100 miles an hour within the next 2 or 3 hours. For local officials here, they're not worried as much about the wind as the rising water.
We dodged the worst, but I think we're going to experience today some storm surge.
As the winds from Katrina begin to shift from out of the south, 10 to 15 more feet of Gulf water expected to be pushed up into Mobile Bay. Some people are already trapped. The National Guard slowly crosses this high water spot to try and rescue one family. Rescue crews so far still able to answer calls, but they may not be able to get out later today.
And I'm hoping that people will stay inside and see how serious this is. I have a fear that some of the roads, before we can get there and inspect them, people might try to use them, and that road may be a bottomless pit.
looks like it's very bad in New Orleans, safe to say. Kelly, some of the information we're getting, it's sketchy, but 12 feet of water in most of the parish now, reportedly in St. Bernard Parish, just east of New Orleans.
Yeah, we have reports of people going to the rooftops to hope for some rescue soon. An apartment building on Wright Avenue in Terrytown in Jefferson Parish has collapsed with people inside.
And Kelly, this is an area where they have a lot of refineries as well in Chalmette and Miro. We'll have to get an update on what's going on there as well. Here are the latest pictures from downtown Mobile, Alabama. Just incredible. Look at the water action. And Kelly, this is an area that's going to see the surge keep coming up and up and up. As that track is west of here, that's going to be a south wind for many hours to come.
And we're still talking about winds well in excess of hurricane strength, folks. This storm is still packing winds as of the last advisory of 125 miles an hour. That's closest to the actual eye of the storm, which again made a second landfall along the Mississippi-Louisiana border. You're watching our storm alert coverage of Katrina. Welcome back. I'm Kelly Cass.
And I'm Bill Keneally, and Dr. Forbes is here now. And Dr. Forbes, we're getting the heating of the daytime now. Are you looking for an expansion in the coverage of the tornado threat?
Yeah, I certainly am. We're getting the tornado threat right now on those rain bands, but we'll spread a little bit off toward the north and east into parts of Georgia and northward into central Alabama and parts of Georgia as well. Right now, we have a couple of threat areas. These bands here that could be embedded tornadoes. Then we get the more classic isolated cells within the bands. Let's take a look here. We'll pause here. We do have tornado warnings just for these circulations within the eye wall in parts of Forest, Lamar counties around the Purvis area in Mississippi. And then we have threats farther off to the east in some of these outer rain bands coming across here. These are in the area of Escambia County in Alabama and Florida and Santa Rosa County in Florida. And we also have some very, very heavy rain. The hurricane force winds are in the east side of the eye wall right now. And within these bands just to the north and east of the eye wall, we have rain falling at 3 to 4 inches per hour. So tornadoes, destructive winds, and flooding rains are still in progress. Bill and Kelly?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Forbes, for that report.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Katrina, now causing widespread flooding now. This from the National Weather Service. They're saying this is a very life-threatening situation. Flash flooding going on just south of Lake Maurepas and Pontchartrain. They're calling it very dangerous right now.
Yeah, Kelly, St. John the Baptist and St. Charles parishes are affected again west of New Orleans. And I'm not sure about how tall, or if they do have at all, levee systems on Lake Maurepas, but that is a very big lake, and that also can get quite a fetch with a prolonged northeast to northwest wind.
Now, well to the east of our center of circulation along the panhandle of Florida, we have Stephanie Abrams out there in Fort Walton Beach.
And Stephanie, you've been buffeted pretty good. It's amazing you're about 180 miles. We've lost that shot right now. Okay, we'll try to get back to Steph very shortly. First up, though, let's get a couple of frames up here, Kelly, and there's that track. It's very evident. It is coming due northward now. It's also evident that center is officially inland, so weakening should occur. Pressure at the last point was about 932 millibars.
Wow, and this system continues to pack a punch. We've got lots of reports of tornadoes as well. I believe we have Stephanie Abrams back now. She is at Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and even though she's so far away from the center, still experiencing those tropical storm force winds. Right, Steph?
That's right. We're getting gusts up to tropical storm force, and they do enough to throw you off balance a little bit, but you can still stand pretty straight here. And I want to talk about the erosion, because we are going to see significant erosion up and down the Gulf Coast. Right now, I'm standing on a sand dune that's about 15 feet high, and they built this up after Hurricane Ivan. But as you see down the beach where they don't have sand dunes, look at the Gulf coming all the way up, and in some spots washing over the wall and onto Highway 98, and that's closed some of the highways. Now, of course, water is very powerful. We have gusty winds, and I think people underestimate the power of water. 2 feet of moving water can move a vehicle, and of course, that powerful water can also move boats. Yes, we have seen some boats that have been come loose and floating in the water, and you know what? Some people might be surprised to find something in their backyard that doesn't belong to them.
We had picked up about 3 o'clock. So we woke up, came out here, checked the weather, and I got to looking out here at about 3:45 and saw lights. And and got to look a little closer. Something's out there. So we got the flashlight. I walked downstairs and opened the door. Realized we had about a 50-foot boat up there against our dock.
All right, thank you very much, Stephanie, for that live report. We're going to get back to her a little bit later on.
Audio very tough right now. Kelly, also damage reports west of where she is, and ABC's Darren Lynn is live in Mobile, Alabama.
And Darren, thanks for joining us. This is still a very powerful and dangerous storm. We've heard reports that the downtown Mobile area is flooded. Have you seen or heard anything about the impacts in the downtown area?
Yes, we have, Kelly. In fact, we were told by emergency management officials that 3 to 4 feet of floodwaters were in the entire downtown Mobile area. That's because of storm surges between 10 to 12 feet high, as well as the rains, the heavy rains. They expected between 10 and 15 inches here, and they're getting that rain. The rain continues as we speak right now, and the downtown area is prone to flooding because it is very, very low, not below sea level per se like New Orleans, but low enough that anytime there's a tropical storm, heavy rains, or something like a hurricane, in this case Katrina, the rains saturate that area around Mobile Bay, which leads into the downtown area, and many of the folks that lived along the coastline did evacuate, so it's not as if anyone is stranded down there. It's just a matter of waiting till the storm passes through and waiting till those floodwaters subside.
And Darren, I know all morning long we've had winds approaching 90 miles per hour. In your travels in the area, have you seen any structural damage?
Structural damage right here, it's not major because we did not receive those 90-plus-mile-an-hour winds. But take a look at that house over there behind me. We were receiving wind gusts up to 70, possibly 75 miles an hour. And as you know, that is Category 1 strength, the basic Category 1 strength, but yet enough to tear off rooftops off of buildings. And as you know, when Katrina passed through South Florida earlier over the weekend, that it completely obliterated some of these buildings with those wind gusts that were 75, possibly 80 miles an hour. So definitely there is going to be damage here in Mobile when all is said and done. It's just a matter of assessing it once the storm completely passes through.
Thank you for that live report, Darren. Hang in there. We've got more heavy rain just off to your south that is slowly moving in.
And in Mississippi now, Kelly, it looks like the eye wall approaching the Hattiesburg area. Literally, Hurricane Katrina sliding right up along Interstate 59.
And we've got still hurricane-force winds out there throughout southern Mississippi and now into southwestern Alabama. Numerous tornado warnings are in effect as well.
Wow, look at the live pictures here from downtown New Orleans. Hopefully the worst is behind you. We've had reports that a lot of the windows in the upper floors of the downtown skyscrapers, the big hotels especially there, have been blown out.
Yeah, we're talking about the windows blown out around Loyola Avenue. We've had reports of 8 feet of water covering up the streets in Arabi and St. Bernard Parish, so widespread flooding, and a lot of people are needing help. But I'll tell you what, the officials have to wait for the winds to subside before they can actually get out there and help anyone.
Kelly, other southeastern cities now under a tornado watch, including Birmingham and including Montgomery, and just south and west of Atlanta.
We've got more on that as our Katrina coverage continues. We've got new pictures just in from New Orleans. Check out the windows being blown out from some of the high-rises out there surrounding the Superdome, where, of course, 9,000 people have taken shelter. We've got reports of people on the rooftops around Almanastor Drive, and we've also got a report that the levee along the Industrial Canal, the water has topped that, and that has resulted in 8 feet of water in St. Bernard Parish, flooding the city of Arabi. So we've had some serious problems in the New Orleans area.
And Kelly, that news is very sketchy out of New Orleans. The last time we had a report from wind at an airport there was right around the daybreak hour. At that time, winds gusting to 90 at the Lakefront Airport.
That's right. Unfortunately, we're not able to get a lot of meteorological data anymore because a lot of these places are not reporting to us anymore. So we're looking at our satellite imagery, and we're still seeing a very powerful Katrina, though, aren't we?
Yeah, and intuitively, we know that winds are coming around now more from a northwesterly direction there in the areas around New Orleans. Not to say they're not still very strong, however. And the movement of our hurricane is now north at about 16 miles per hour. there's your center point as of 10 a.m. Central Time. And by the way, the new advisory should come in with further documentation of weakening, and also that track continues to move north. It might accelerate a little bit too. And by the way, the pressure at 932 millibars. Again, the deeper the pressure, the stronger the winds. It's all kind of coming into that center and it's caught in that eye wall. That is where those sustained winds sit at 125 miles per hour. But from 902 millibars to 932 millibars, we have seen the filling or the weakening of the hurricane, thankfully. But nonetheless, it came in as a very strong Category 4 officially around the Buras area, and that was way down south in New Orleans there near Boothville. And at that time, they were clocking winds at about 140 miles per hour. The bad news is it looks like that convection ring around that eye wall and out from the eye wall fairly expanded here. So there is a broad area up into Hattiesburg and Laurel and Waynesboro there in Mississippi where winds are probably at 75 miles per hour, at least in gust, and still some peak winds can be expected here, probably exceeding 100 miles per hour for a couple more hours. And over where Stephanie is still a big, broad fetch of southerly flow. And even with Dauphin Island out there protecting, supposedly, Mobile Bay, there is water rushing up that bay. And with that track northward, we're going to have the flow out of the south for a long time. That's going to be crippling historical flooding. The St. Louis Bay area over there by Waveland and also the Mobile Bay is going to have catastrophic flooding. Here over Lake Pontchartrain, once again, more of a northwest wind. Jeff Marr reporting right here along I-12. We'll try to get back to Jeff as quickly as we can. Jim Cantori has some harrowing tales to tell as well. In the Gulfport area, supposedly water rises approaching 30 feet there. And look at the back edge of that rain all the way out to the capital around the Baton Rouge area. So where's that all headed now? It's going to continue lifting northbound. As it does so, we'll get Montgomery now in the fray, Birmingham, Atlanta. At least on the western sides of these metro areas, there could be some tornadic type of activity later on today. Atlanta's going to get windier, especially late tonight into early Tuesday. That'll be the closest passage. Nashville to Louisville, a lot of wind. Could have winds in the strong tropical storm force range for a while tonight into the day Tuesday. And then also we could have some very serious flooding. We'll have to watch the Ohio River. Thankfully, it's been running pretty low of late, but also the other rivers out there, the Cumberland River and the Tennessee River and their tributaries as well. Let's get the bottom line here on what's going to happen. On the coast here, we have a very high surge happening now. And if you remember in Hurricane Isabel a couple of years ago, that surge lasted for a long, long time, folks. So that southerly flow will continue, and the hurricane force winds, as we have mentioned, now getting up into Hattiesburg and Meridian. Kelly?
And Bill, as you just mentioned, we've had serious flooding there in Gulfport, Mississippi. We have reports of water covering Highway 90, and that's a significant water rise out there. We want to talk to Jim Cantori's producer out there, Simon Temperton. He joins us by phone. And Simon, just how bad was the worst of the storm for you, and how is it right now?
Well, Kelly, it's not over yet because the water is still up around where we are. We're at the Armed Forces Retirement Home, which is, I'd say, a quarter of a mile from the beach, and the water has come over. It flooded out everywhere we were. We lost our rental cars. They got completely flooded out. And we also have been evacuated in the building that we are. Everyone was on the first floor. Water started seeping in, and it was like 5 or 6 feet of water, and we had to be evacuated to the second and third floor. So it's been real incredible. Now we're on the 5th floor of the building, and the wind is rocking the building as I speak.
All right, Simon, we're glad you guys are safe where you are now. We're going to continue to have live shots across the Gulf Coast when we come back.
I want to close it out, Kelly. Pictures, live pictures now from downtown New Orleans. Still winds approaching hurricane force. Welcome back, and as we had feared, it looks like a dire situation in the greater New Orleans area.
A significant water rise out there, and we have flash flood warnings going now for the parishes in southeastern Louisiana, St. Bernard, and also Plaquemines Parish. And this statement, very, very critical here from the National Weather Service. They're saying anyone trying to seek refuge in the attic or up on the rooftop, they're strongly urged to take any necessary tools for survival. In fact, if you go in the attic, they're telling you to bring an axe or hatchet with you so that you can cut your way out onto the roof to avoid drowning.
And Kelly, that is just amazing. And look at all the rain. Flood warnings up for all those parishes and adjacent counties in Mississippi and in Alabama. Rainfall 4 hours ago approaching 8 inches at New Orleans Lakefront Airport.
And we have pictures now from New Orleans, the windows being blown out. We are still experiencing hurricane-force winds out there. We've got more live reports coming up after the break.
Stay indoors.
Katrina coverage continues here on the Weather Channel, Hurricane Central.
You are listening to the roar of Hurricane Katrina. Those pictures just in showing you some of the damage it incurred in New Orleans.
And Kelly, that is now with a west wind blowing there in New Orleans. The Category 2 hurricane, it is now a Category 2. Katrina is now packing winds in that eye wall of 105 miles per hour.
So while the storm itself may be weakening as it makes landfall, it is still interacting with land. The friction from that causing several tornado warnings to be prompted. Not only that, but folks right in the eye wall itself are experiencing winds over 100 miles an hour, and that is sounding off the tornado sirens as well.
And also in Gulfport, Mississippi, where Jim Cantore is, where we had that onslaught of southerly flow pumping in incredible levels of water. That wind is now turning around a little more southwesterly now. Want to go back to Jim Cantore at the retired Air Force home there. And Jim, what is the situation in Gulfport? I guess I want to ask you, is the water starting to go down at all?
It is, Bill. It is. It is down probably about 5 feet from where it was earlier. Now, that's not to say we're out of the water. There's about 5 feet out there. The parking lot is covered with water. As I look out, you know, the trees are stripped clear of their leaves. There is debris everywhere, especially all, you know, aluminum type debris. There's roof damage as I look off toward the north on several of the roofs. There's like a complete roof failure on one of the buildings I'm looking at. Cars were literally floating around, piled up as the water receded, basically where they landed at the highest point. I can see our satellite truck. I can see the vehicles that were with us. They are now above water, at least part of them. The satellite truck is completely above water, so that's good. Everybody, as we know it, as far as we know it, is doing pretty good here. What they've done at the Air Force retirement, or the Armed Services retirement home, I want to let everybody know who's watching us, who has relatives here. Again, we've got about 500 people here. Everybody's fine, okay? I mean, obviously there's some people shaken up. There's some people that will need some medical attention at some point here, but everybody's on higher ground. They have medicines, they have wheelchairs and whatnot, things to get people around up to higher ground as well. So they're basically using the second, third, fourth, and fifth floors as different angles of attack. In other words, the fifth floor is security, fourth floor is where everybody's going to eat, third floor is where we're going to put everybody with special needs, and the second floor is where everyone's going to kind of hang out until it's time to go to bed or what have you. Right now, no air conditioning. That's going to be a problem for a lot of these folks. So things are slowly quieting down, but it's not a pretty sight out there. Back to you.
Jim, just for folks joining us now, again, we've heard you say that there's been a rise of water about 27 feet. That is phenomenal. Could you tell us how quickly that water came in?
Kelly, it took about an hour to get in here, and it's actually could be about 37 feet. You know, I got a chance to talk to Dr. Lyons a little bit, and he was looking around at some of the elevations here, and he sees things that are 20, 25 feet. And what I've been told from the engineers here, this is at 27 feet. Now, we got 10 foot of water here on top of the base of that. So if that is in fact the case, if we got 37 foot surge, that is probably the biggest storm surge ever in North American history.
Right.
Just unprecedented. Jim Cantore, thank you very much. Reporting from Gulfport. Kelly, trying to put that in perspective now, I believe the peak surge water level was 24 feet in Hurricane Camille.
Right, so it looks like that's quite a water rise, and that could indeed be a record if we do get confirmation of that. But again, we want to go a little bit more east of there to the Mobile area with Mike Seidel, who joins us live now, still being battered by the wind.
And Mike, good morning to you again. Hopefully we're not going to rival that water level. How have you fared in the past hour? Any changes?
Not that we know of. And keep in mind, Bill and Kelly, we're still getting a very strong onshore flow. Even once the storm passes our latitude, we're still going to have those onshore winds, although they'll eventually turn around to the southwest. So I don't think that water's going to back off as quickly as where Jim is and points over towards Pascagoula, because you have the onshore component, and then you quickly turn the wind around offshore north and northwest, like Jeff has been experiencing on the west side of the eye wall over there north of Lake Pontchartrain. We're still getting pretty decent gusts above 60 miles an hour. We did find out that the wind measuring equipment at Mobile's downtown airport is not reporting. It may have gotten blown away. Who knows? It's probably somewhere up around Montgomery. Here are the pictures from downtown Mobile. We tried to get downtown. We couldn't get off I-10. In fact, our crew, Eddie Cortez and Michelle Birnbaum, our producer, went down the ramp, and they had to back up because they couldn't get to Water Street. Water Street was underwater. That whole area from yesterday where we were is under quite a bit of water out around the Battleship Memorial Parkway. And again, we're still getting these rain bands rotating in on the eastern side. This is the worst side, and considering it's still a rather strong hurricane, it's now Category 2, and we're a good 90 miles away from the center. We're still getting battered pretty good. Bill and Kelly?
Okay, Mike, thanks a lot again from downtown Mobile. Just because the hurricane is weakening, top winds 105 miles per hour, that does not mean the surge cannot continue rising, and it will continue doing that there.
The danger is not over yet. We are looking at damage again in from New Orleans. Look at all the flooding there. We've had quite a water rise, and we're still under the threat of tornadoes. Keep that in mind, folks. This is a storm not just for the coastal sections, but further inland as well.
Live shots continue from the coast next.
The building is structurally sound as we understand it, but it does have a roof that is of a rubbery substance. And it's my understanding that half of that substance has blown off and the tiles are missing. So there is some leakage in the Superdome. There's a hole in the roof, as I understand it. But the structure is still sound.
Again, that was the mayor of New Orleans. We spoke with him a little bit earlier on, and you're looking at the Superdome now. Of course, he talked about the hole in the roof. There has been some leaking. That hole being reported to be about 1 foot wide by 6 feet long. We've had windows shattered out of buildings up and down Loyola Avenue, and all those businesses around there sustaining a lot of damage from the storm.
And thankfully, as I understand it, Kelly, the base of that floor there about 18 feet above the mean road level there, so that should be their saving grace.
Yeah, they're not flooding up with water, but certainly other neighborhoods are in the New Orleans area. But as we head well away from the center of circulation to the east into Florida, it's still not all good there either.
Yeah, the breadth of this hurricane is amazing. Stephanie Abrams, we had a landfall about 180 miles due west of where you are. What have you witnessed out there in Fort Walton Beach this morning?
Well, what we've been dealing with is basically the wind and these waves, and that's it. But fortunately, we've escaped the brunt of the storm. We haven't seen a whole lot of rain either. Let me show you. We're standing on a sand dune here, and the water has been knocking against this sand dune all day long. And they built this after Ivan because they had a whole lot of problems with Ivan. But if we look farther down the beach where they don't have sand dunes, you can see the ocean coming all the way up to the front of a pool, actually. And in spots, it's washing over the seawall where there are not dunes. And that's why portions of 98 are closed, which is the main thoroughfare through here. And we have seen that electricity flicker on and off, but for the most part, electricity is on. And we have seen some wooden fences blown over. Really not a lot to deal with here, not a lot of significant damage. We do have a lot of evacuees staying here in the hotel that we're in. We spoke to a couple of them, and they are concerned about their homes. Someone said that he talked to his friend who was sitting on his roof in New Orleans, a town just outside of New Orleans. He's extremely concerned about him, as we are. And we also spoke to a woman who has a home in Gulfport, and she said that her home is just north of where Jim Cantori is located, so she is extremely concerned about her home as well. So the people here are safe, and we have no idea when they're going to be able to get back to their homes, and when they do get home, what it's going to look like. So a lot of people here just watching and waiting and pretty worried about their property.
Stephanie, Bill here. Again, I know the tidal variations aren't that dramatic there, but do you think you've seen peak water there in the past hour?
Yeah, you know, Bill, it's been pretty consistent. Like you said, the tide's they don't vary much here. And it's really been consistent with them just bumping up to these dunes. We haven't seen much more than that, so no huge water rises.
All right, Stephanie reporting from Fort Walton Beach, an area that's been ravaged time and time again. Thankfully, this time may have caused somewhat of a break.
Well, you have to excuse our mess here at the Weather Channel. We have piles of paper here because we have flash flooding reports and we have numerous tornado reports as well. And we want to bring in our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes. And Greg, good luck trying to list all these tornado warnings. There's quite a few of them.
There sure are, Kelly. Some of these are really for tornado force winds and little mini circulations inside the eye wall. Some are individual thunderstorms out in those outer bands. Let's take a look. Here, hurricane force winds. There are tornado warnings for these storms from Hattiesburg down to the south and these areas north and east of the hurricane center. We'll see some of those tornado warnings at this time. Not so well-defined individual circulations, but just continual threat of tornado force winds. Then we go a little bit farther to the north, up in the forest area. Now here's some of the embedded circulations in some of these bands, and that is Scott and Newton counties around the Union area. There you do have individual storms that are rotating and producing a brief tornado threat. Then we go a little bit farther east. Some of these rain bands that are coming onshore in the areas around Pensacola, Valparaiso, in the Baldwin County, Alabama, Escambia, and Santa Rosa counties in Florida. There you have the tornado threat. And another one of these big bands setting up, that's farther to the east. That's over near Dothan and Troy in Alabama. Let's switch sources. You can see why we have these two different types of threats. You see the eye coming onshore. Then these orange dots, they're the lightning. And it's in these outer rain bands where we get the more legitimate supercell rotating thunderstorms set up. Then we have within the eye wall, we can always have the possibility of tornadoes. And of course, tornado force winds just from the sustained hurricane force winds. We'll watch these storms push their way where the sun is coming out. Right along the Alabama-Georgia border there, we'll have a tornado threat spreading northward as the afternoon proceeds. Bill, Kelly?
All right, thank you, Dr. Greg Forbes. Just in time for the Atlanta rush hour. Isn't that great?
Tell you what, that tornado watch, including West Central Georgia, goes right through this evening, I believe 7 o'clock Central Time, so the threat is not over yet.
Kelly, I want to close out now on some pictures from the Big Easy. What's going on now? Look at all that water in downtown New Orleans.
Yeah, we're told the police stations there, the hospitals are all running on generators, backup power. We have reports of widespread flooding due to water topping a levee along the Industrial Canal around Arabi in St. Bernard Parish.